for this?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Reading Time with Jarvis. Over the last 15 years or so, and actually I guess the count is 17 years now, I have read more than 300 business books, most of which can be found on my office bookshelf. And in this segment, Reading Time with Jarvis, I'm going to share with you some of my favorite books and a few of my key takeaways. Now, important to note that I am not sharing the dozens, hundreds of books that I read that were not useful for my career. So these are only my favorite books that I've read, both recently and in the past. Today's book is Measure What Matters by John Doerr. John was an investor and a strategic coach to people like Google, like Intel, really big major companies, which initially turned me off to the book. I thought, well, the business planning that Google does, that has no bearing on the business planning I do in my small lifestyle practice. But I was completely wrong. John's advice and his guidance on what he calls OKRs, objectives and key results, are phenomenal. In fact, we recently completed our 2021 business planning for my office. And while we had dozens of things that we wanted to get done in 2021, we were able to boil it down to two key objectives. Objective number one, successfully transition 80% of my client meetings to our new advisor, Alex. Objective number two, bring on $25 million of new assets under management. So underneath those two objectives came all of our key results. Things like how exactly we were going to get those assets under management, how exactly we were going to transition clients. But having those objectives in place allows our entire team to focus on those critical goals. Now, it's important to note that this doesn't replace our other critical goals. For example, we always want to deliver massive value to our clients, right? So those things still need to continue, but these are the goals or the objectives that we're reaching for. And this book, Measure What Matters, gives a really great framework for doing that, regardless of the size of your team. So a couple of key takeaways. Takeaway number one, I recommend that you pick 2 or 3 really high-level objectives, measurable objectives, which John goes into great detail on. Ideally, these are objectives that you think have about a 50-50 chance of achieving. So this isn't necessarily a BHAG where you say, well, I'm at 100,000 of revenue right now and I want to get to $1 billion. That's a long ways to go. I really recommend measuring for what you think your next achievable milestone will be, and that you've got about a 50-50 chance of achieving it. That seems to be about the ideal ratio. So pick those and then begin measuring everything you do around those goals. Takeaway number 2, and it's related to the first one, make sure your entire team is on board with these goals and they're in agreement with how they will be tracked. So as I've been working with my new advisor, Alex, and I put these 2 goals, he says, Matthew, goal number 1, transitioning 80% of client meetings over to him. He says, piece of cake. Goal number 2, $25 million. Some advisors take a decade to bring that much in assets on. How are we going to possibly do that in a year? Now, of course, I know how to do that, right? That's what I do myself and I coach other advisors to do. So we were able to step back and say, great, Alex, let's map this out quarter by quarter, month by month, week by week, until we're both confident that this goal is at least a 50% probability of achieving, right? So everyone on the team needs to be aboard these. If people on your team think that's a completely ridiculous goal, then they're not going to buy into it. So you have to have buy-in. And one way to do that is to really pencil that out. And again, John goes into detail. Takeaway number 3, this was not in John's book, but it's something I'm such an advocate for. Create extreme accountability around these goals. Now, the goal of adding $25 million of AUM, a lot of that is outside of your control, right? So putting extreme accountability on that would not necessarily be helpful. However, if we back that down and I say, great, part of that goal is I'm going to work on centers of influence. And so I can put extreme accountability around contacting 10 centers of influence every week. And any week that I don't do that, I have to send a check for $1,000 to my least favorite political candidate or the charity that I most despise, along with a note saying this is the first of many contributions that you'll receive. So whatever your goals, set extreme accountability on the part that you can control and make it happen. So with that, in the immortal words of Nacho Libre, go away, read some books.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and